Hello, my name is Jeroen van Bemmel. I work in the Nuage NPI team. Nuage recently released its version 3.2 of the Nuage Virtualized Services platform, and I would like to show you some of the new features using a sample cloud application that I've created myself. This application is called the Elastic Communication Cloud, or EC Cloud. It is based on Docker containers, and it's a sample application that shows how you might deploy and run applications in a cloud type of environment going forward using Nuage VSP for the underlying networking. Docker containers are a fairly recent technology. It's very new, starting to become very popular. However, not all environments or customers are ready to deploy containers yet, most certainly not in production. So what I'll do, I'll show how we can use OpenStack and use traditional VMs to run this application inside containers that run inside VMs. Now that may not be the eventual deployment model, but it's most definitely a feasible deployment model, and Nuage is flexible enough so that it supports both regular containers as well as regular VMs as well as containers. I want to show you not only this application but also some of the process of how to deploy this application. As you can possibly tell from the name, EC Cloud, it's intended to be very easy. So the deployment of this application itself, the process is very simple. I'm going to start with an empty Nuage VSD, Virtualized Services Directory, with just freshly installed with nothing but a license to use it. And likewise, I have an empty OpenStack system, OpenStack Kilo. And then I'm going to provision the network using a script. Nuage SDN is fully automatable, fully scriptable using the API, and I've created a simple Docker container called nuage/import, which can read a JSON text file and populate the VSD database with the content of that file. So in essence, what you have is a type of network makefile. So instead of provisioning the application for the network, we're going to create the network for the application. And then once I've created the network, I can use Horizon or any other orchestration portal to launch the VMs that realize this particular application. This is my Horizon dashboard. As you can see, it's completely empty. There's no networks or images running currently. The only thing I've done, I've taken the standard Ubuntu cloud image, the trusty version, and I've launched it, installed Docker, and saved a snapshot of this image. So I have a VM image that is the Ubuntu cloud image with Docker running inside of it. Likewise, on VSD, I have the OpenStack Kilo organization that's created by default by the OpenStack plugin, but there's no other organizations or networks defined. Just to show you my makefile, it's going to run a Docker command passing it the name of the import container and some parameters that point it to my OpenStack controller and my VSD, and it's going to do what it's going to do. It's going to create an organization called EC Cloud OpenStack, and it's going to do it based on this JSON text file over here. Just a quick look, this file looks like this. There is definitions for networking constructs and everything that we need to deploy this particular application. So you would typically put this in your version control system alongside with the source code of the application. So I'm going to say make network. It's going to make a number of API calls to create all the constructs that are defined in the text file. And it's also going to use the Neutron API to import the some of the networks into OpenStack so that I can attach VMs through OpenStack. This is one of the two supported integration models with OpenStack, so you can either create networks in VSD and then import them into OpenStack, or create the networks in OpenStack and then work with them through OpenStack alone. I'll show the second model in a moment as well. If I take a look at VSD now, there is this OpenStack EasyCloud organization, and it's created a domain instance network for my application. It has a number of zones, and it's also provisioned the security policies for this application. So there is ingress and egress policies that define exactly the flows that are allowed or required for this application to function. The script also created some infrastructure networks. So these are shared networks between all the domains in the data center. It created some floating IP pools, and it also created a shared subnet. Now the first thing I want to do before I deploy the application, I want to use a local private Docker repository with images that are going to be launched for my application. So for that, Nuage 3.2 has a new feature. It's called linked domains. So I can create a domain with shared services that are accessible from any number of domain instances. The script has pre-populated this template for me, so I'm going to instantiate this shared domain. And I'm going to check this new feature that makes it a hub domain in a domain linkage topology. Now, in my setup, I have two servers that are running Nova Compute and VRS, server 2 and server 3. I have a VSG, a pair of VSGs in virtual chassis mode. I have a 7750 on top here. And of course I have VSD and VSC running on an ESXi cluster. On server 3 I'm running a private Docker repository. So what I'm going to do is create a host vport connection to the VSG such that I can put this private repository into the shared domain such that the applications can reach it. In order to make the gateway usable by my new organization, I need to give permissions to for the port. So I'm going to use VLAN 100 over here, give permissions to the new organization, and now I can create what is called a host port, which is a virtual representation of a physical port on the 7850 VSG. I'm creating the VLAN, and then I'm going to touch the host interface. It resolves, and I'm going to give it IP address .1. Okay, so now I've created this shared domain. Now I can go to my EasyCloud demo domain and associate the shared domain with it. There's one more thing I need to do. So the script has created this network topology for me, but what it hasn't done is link this network to the outside. For that we have a 7750 here with a WAN service, and I have a shared subnet here where I can attach this WAN service. Such that the VSC will advertise the routes that are a part of this service to the PE router, and I can reach those VMs through the 7750. Alright, so let me switch to OpenStack. Just to show you the networks that I created in VSD have been imported into OpenStack. There's 3 subnets. There's a front end and a back end, and a network for the authentication instances. So if I go and launch my Ubuntu Cloud image with Docker, front, back, and I'm going to feed it an install script that's going to run the proper command to get the right image from the Docker repository. Okay, OpenStack is assigning the IP addresses from the subnets that have been created, so it's going to get a .1 address on the front and likewise on the back. It has two VNICs, two interfaces. If I look at the console just to show you what's happening, it's downloading the Docker image from the local repository. While that is ongoing, so one thing, as you can see, the VM shows up in VSD, and one thing that the script for the application set up in this shared subnet is a set of static routes to a virtual IP .10. So ECMP static routes is a new feature of Nuage 3.2. It allows you to have multiple routes to the same destination, and that is one way to distribute traffic to a number of different VMs using a standard feature that is available in the 7750 in this case, in the router. We're not using anything proprietary here. For the same reason, it could be a Juniper router or a Cisco router. But like this, it makes it very easy to scale this application because I can just launch additional instances, and the traffic gets distributed over those across those instances, and I don't need to have a separate load balancer element in the path. The application is almost ready to run. Of course, I could take a snapshot of this, and then next time the deployment process will be even faster. But I just wanted to show you how you can start from an empty image, empty virtual machine, and populate it based on an image from a private repository. So inside this VM, I'm running a single Docker container. It's called Easy Cloud Demo, and it's exposing a port 80 on for HTTP, for web access, and some other ports for the application itself. So in theory, if I now go to the virtual IP address, I can access my application. Application itself, it's a web video calling application, so I can register as a user, user A in this case. Hello, that's me. I can open a second tag, user B, register, allow, and then A can call B, and I can talk to myself. Alright, I think you get the idea. So that concludes part 1 of the demo. Starting from an empty system, going to deploy a sample cloud application using shared domains, new feature in VSP, and ECMP for easy scaling.